Hey there, everybody, it's that Slasher Elijah, and I hope you all are doing well. Immediately from the title alone, you can probably guess that this is going to be a much different video from my usual content. First off, let me tell you, as I'm sure you're already aware of, I love horror. I had gotten into it at a very early age because of my dad, who introduced me to two pieces of content. Those pieces of content being Tales from the Crypt and a little movie that I still hold very near and dear to my heart. Beetlejuice.
Nobody says the B word. Come on.
In all seriousness, I really do love this movie. Even if it isn't directly a scary horror movie, it's still horror adjacent, with a demonic entity who likes to play tricks and overall just be the biggest menace to society.
Nice fucking model!
So you can probably imagine my excitement whenever I learned that we would be not only getting a sequel, but the sequel was coming out in September of this year. We ended up going opening day, September 6th, and for the occasion I had asked my dear girlfriend Heidi to Beetlejuicify me for the occasion. Originally, we were gonna see the movie at a drive-in, but that didn't quite pan out because of the weather and other events. But we still went to go see the movie at my local theater, which, fun fact, I used to work at. Now, like I had said, I had went to go see this movie opening day 2 days ago, so some time has passed. Here's how I'm gonna go about with the remainder of this video. I'm going to split it up into two sections, one of which will contain a spoiler-free review for people who quite haven't seen the film yet, and the other will contain information and spoilers about the film. I would highly recommend going to see the sequel, and if for whatever reason you haven't seen the original, I would also recommend seeing that as well before going into this video further. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into Beetlejuice. Let me go ahead and say that the movie was, at best, I'd say alright. Immediately right out the gate, I noticed that a lot of the writing and just a lot of the acting in general was super awkward and very questionable. I'm gonna get into it a lot later on during our spoiler section of the video. So once again, go check out this movie beforehand. But something that I had noticed quite a lot with even returning characters was that a lot of the dialogue seemed incredibly forced. There were good bits of dialogue here and there, you know, that's not questionable at all. But the time where it is forced is very noticeable and, like I said, very questionable. The plot was pretty alright. I think my biggest gripe about it is that it seemed as though people were attempting to throw like 7 different plot lines into the mix, and rather than just seeing what sticks, they instead ran with every single idea, which really cluttered the film for me. I've also seen a lot of other people share this sentiment online because a lot of the plot points that are contained in the movie don't really seem to go anywhere, and I don't know, it's just a very questionable decision. However, with that being said, there were some really good moments that helped this movie in my eyes. Like I said, a lot of the examples I'm going to bring up are in the spoiler version of this movie, but there is a scene where you see the character Beetlejuice Beetlejuicing it up, and it doesn't seem forced. It is just, it's probably one of the most memorable moments in the movie for me. And it doesn't fall flat. It just does not fall flat at all. And honestly, I was cracking it up in the theater, along with many others in the theater as well. A lot of the jokes were just really great. There were a couple ones here and there, not in that specific scene, but just in the movie in general, that were very cheesy. But I'm going to chalk those moments up to being geared towards younger audiences as well as older audiences as well, and you're kind of having to please all these different crowds at once. So, you know, I'm not going to give them too much shit for that. I feel like I have been pretty negative towards this movie, but I cannot stress enough how certain moments of this movie kind of annoyed me. A lot of characters in this movie act very outlandish and don't really feel like the same ones that we witnessed in the original. Um, Especially whenever you take in all of the events that occurred in the original Beetlejuice. I mean, it's Tim Burton's story, so where he takes these characters um, is entirely up to him. But for example, I can say this without spoilers. Lydia's character in Beetlejuice, very, very drastically different from how we saw her depicted in the original, um, which I don't know. You can chalk that up. Well, okay, I'm not gonna say anything. Um, all of the characters that we witness on screen are, I don't know, they're estranged from one another. And it's just such an odd direction to take with this movie. Um, but I mean, at the same time, you can chalk that up to plot reasons, I suppose. Like in the original, the family was also very estranged, so maybe, I don't know, maybe they were trying something very similar there. So I'm gonna keep a positive eye here. Um, I am going to keep the spoiler-free segment very brief. I know it is not long at all, just because I feel like I've already maybe overshared a lot of information. So let me end off here with just a couple of final notes. Like I said, I can't really say a whole lot. I'd say it's like a solid 6 for me, at least in terms of like a rating scale and what have you. For those out there like myself who wanted to return to that feeling that we had when we were just little girls and little boys, and seeing this legend that is Beetlejuice on screen, don't expect them to uphold that same vision and those expectations, because I like to think that's what I did, and I like to think that is what had me annoyed. There are definitely really, really fun moments in this movie that will stick around for me. I'm still thinking of one particular scene, which I'm gonna be fucking gawking about in the spoiler version of this. But overall, it leaves me kind of disappointed and a little dissatisfied in the end. Um, Something that the sequel did have me do that is both a blessing and a curse is it has me craving more. It has me craving more Beetlejuice, and it makes me wish for more. Which, once again, I mean, if that was the aim of this movie and the aim of Tim Burton for us to want more of Beetlejuice, then by God, you went over the top and you did terrific, right? Um, but I don't know. I feel like I should be satisfied, and I don't really feel satisfied, but I feel satisfied wanting more. I don't really know if that makes any sense, but nonetheless, if you are a diehard Beetlejuice fan, you that I mean, you need to absolutely see this movie before you die. Go for it. And I wish you nothing but a pleasant viewing experience. But that's just not what I received. But hey, I might be overcritical and you may disagree, so please be sure to let me know your own thoughts and comments in the comments down below on what you thought of the sequel. I, once again, really hope you all have a very pleasant viewing experience. Once again, Beetlejuice. It's a good sequel, but it's interesting.
Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice.
It's showtime.
Alright, this segment I'm gonna split up into pros, cons, and just overall specific details I had learned about this film. Beforehand, let me give a little bit of information about actually getting to sit down in the theater. So we had gone opening day to see this movie, and obviously, as I stated earlier, we had planned to see it in a drive-in movie theater, but it had rained a bunch during the day, which really blows. But it still wasn't canceled, which was good. But the other thing, which was B, by the time we had actually gotten there, it had completely sold out. Completely. You could literally see cars tire to tire, and people were waving on cars, which really, really sucked because, like I said, Heidi had done my makeup in the car to Beetlejuiceify me, so, it was kind of a bummer. Now, instead, we turned to our local theater, which, once again, a little bit of that Slasher Elijah lore for you. I used to work at for several years, and it was packed. Something I noticed, which made me smile, was that a lot of people were sporting t-shirts and, like, all kinds of cool Beetlejuice merchandise. The only other person I actually saw that kind of attempted to dress up, well, she didn't really attempt, she did a very, very good job. It was a much taller woman there, who was wearing a Lydia Dietz red wedding gown, and it was just fantastic to see that, I wasn't really the only one there. It was really nice. Whenever we had gotten in our seats and the opening credits started on screen, out of nowhere, I find myself, like, this happening a whole bunch, and I don't know, maybe I'm just a fucking baby or something, but I had really started to get incredibly emotional out of nowhere, seeing this franchise that I loved so much return to the big screen. Like, I literally felt like a little boy again. And I don't know, just something about that was, like, really, really heartwarming, and I don't know, it's just made me feel good. Now, with that, I am not going to give you all every single minor detail about the plot, so let me segue directly into my pros and cons. Let's talk about some pros. First off, the soundtrack. It was slightly different, but honestly, it was really good. Like, I don't know. So a really good example is, like, the opening theme where you have the bum 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 bum, but, like, the difference between, like, the original and this one is, like, in this version it had, like, ancient tribal chants behind that, and I'm like, oh, okay, hey, I'm fucking, I'm jiggy with it. I like it. All right, hey, I'm digging it. It gave this almost, like, resurrected vibe to it, pun intended. And I don't know, it just sold me on the whole. Oh shit, the juice is loose. He's back in town. I don't know. It's really, really loved it. Another thing that I really, really loved, like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the newer generation and a lot of the younger audiences, I don't know, they might like it, but they also might not. Maybe other people my age who didn't grow up on this might not appreciate it. But I loved the effects, which we're going to talk about it a little bit later on, but that was actually, like, the conditions behind doing this movie was as little technology as possible, majority of practical effects and what have you, and animatronics and, makeup, and just, it was just so good. It's just really, really good. There are, like, one such example is there are these, like, somewhat notable characters in the movie, which are, like, these shrunken head employees of Beetlejuice. They've been used a bunch in, like, advertisements and what have you for the film, but obviously these characters are a direct callback to the original, with the shrunken head character and the witch doctor. And if I'm not mistaken, it could be puppetry. But actually, you know what? More than likely it was puppetry, because I am pretty sure that there were actual people in those. I don't know. Maybe I'm stupid, but originally I thought that maybe they were achieved by animatronics alone. But I mean, they just, man, they looked fantastic. And there's one specific character by the name of Bob, who like, he doesn't even have any lines. Like, he doesn't have any like actual, like, spoken lines. Like, he has subtitles on screen every now and again, but he's, oh my god, he's so fucking cute. I'm not even gonna lie. Anyways, moving on. I really enjoyed these characters. Going back on Bob, like I said, is kind of like the lead shrunken head dude. Beetlejuice doesn't really pick on Bob a lot, but he's usually, like, the go-to man whenever Beetlejuice, like, interacts directly in his I'm gonna call it his office. So I'm gonna dive a little deeper whenever we get to my cons about the movie, but honestly, there was really one scene that seriously stuck with me, and I kind of beat around the bush during the spoiler-free version of it for obvious reasons, but it is Lydia's first face-to-face re-encounter with Beetlejuice, where her and her manager slash fiance, which I believe his name is Rory, but I'm probably just going to refer to him as the fiance for the remainder of this video. They go to couples therapy after Rory, thinking that Lydia is stuck in like a delusional state, says Beetlejuice 3 times. This couples therapy is obviously overseen by Beetle. And, I mean, here you just get to... I don't know. It's both a blessing and a curse, because... I mean, you get to see him go fucking buck wild. You know what I mean? Like, you get to see Beetlejuice do his thing. But I'm still kind of disappointed with this scene, mainly because it was shown off a lot in trailers. But also, like, this is the only time that you get to see him really go fucking nuts with it. I mean, there's a later scene, during, the very end of the film, but we'll get into that a little later on. One such example is whenever Beetlejuice is talking about like spilling his guts, right? And you know he offers to let the other two go first, Lydia and the fiance. And he's like, okay, well I'll go first, and he spills his fucking innards out on the ground, and they're just black and gross, and it's just like, oh my god, dude, this is my fucking guy. You know what I mean? Another really interesting thing about this film, I actually really enjoyed, even though it doesn't really go anywhere, the implementation of Charles Dietz, which, if you don't know, once again, I don't know why you're watching this. Charles Dietz was the father, who was played by Jeffrey Jones, who's a very, very bad guy. Seriously, fuck that guy. I don't know if you all knew this, but he took pictures of minors in, I think it was 2003, but he's obviously not a good guy. So, no other way to implement him, but how they do it is, for the scene where his face pops up on screen, they have him like in animation. So there's only like one point where you actually see his face, right? Now the reason why you can't see his face during his other parts is because he's in the afterlife, and he got his head bit off by a fucking shark. So I believe they got like a voice actor that sounded very similar to him, and, you know, just kind of went around while, you know, fucking Headless Charles kind of walked out and about. Now, I do want to apologize in advance, because for the remainder of this video, I am going to do a lot of bitching and moaning. I don't typically like to be hyper negative. In fact, that's something I really frown on. But something about this movie, I mean, there's a lot wrong with it. I also just want to let be known, I am going to be very nitpicky. And I don't know. I encourage you all to form your own opinions. I don't want what I have to say to deter you from going to see this movie. Beetlejuice is a good, well, it's an okay sequel. If you want more Beetlejuice, go see this movie. I want you to go buy a ticket. I want you to go buy a seat. And I really want you to find a moment in this movie that you can love, just like how I love that couples therapy scene. I'm going to say a statement, and more than likely, this is going to be in the title, right? I wrote this, okay, I'm not reading off script right now. I wrote this script 2 days ago, and I still stand by this statement. I am going to throw this title, or I am going to throw this statement in the title as well, excuse me, because I genuinely do think that it captures the essence of this film the most, and that is that Beetlejuice is how not to do a sequel. I I understand that a lot of people are going to hear that, and a lot of people are going to see this title, and they are going to be very upset when I say that. They are probably going to love this film, and they're going to think that everything I have to say is incorrect. One thing I kept thinking about before going into this movie that in all actuality probably doomed me was I kept thinking that Beetlejuice was going to be like Child's Play 2, which I know is a very, very weird comparison, but let me explain. In Child's Play 1, they establish a very, very fun character, that being Chucky, but it's a horror movie, and you don't want to show your monster too much. As someone said, less is more. I can't remember who specifically said that, but less is more. So you keep your monster hidden and have it so when they do come out, they really shine. Both Child's Play and Beetlejuice do this perfectly to a T. Every little moment that they pop up on screen is really just a treat, and you feel like, okay, alright, I'm jiving with this. I also just felt like the pacing of it, both movies were very good. But now I want to show you something.
But sequels are tricky, and the thing about this one that Tim and I were ultra clear about from the get-go was, I said to him, I shouldn't be in it. If I'm in it a little bit longer, it can't be more than like a minute longer. Like, don't say, oh, he was really great and he did those funny things. Let's give him a lot more. I said, we'll make a huge mistake if you put me in it more. Mm-hmm. And he said, I agree. And also we said, and let's make it handmade. Let's not use too much technology. And he said, I'm way ahead of you. He already felt the same way. So that was, you didn't want to make something and say, wow, why'd you guys do that? You should have just left it alone, you know?
Alright, so as I'm sure you're aware by now, Beetlejuice almost barely shows up in the sequel. Like he has his little moments here and there, which is once again just an incredibly odd decision for me. But I mean, this was the criteria that needed to be met in order for this film to happen. I just find it very odd that Michael Keaton specifically asked for him to not appear more often, when this is a 2-hour film. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's Tim Burton's movie, and it's his characters, and what he does with them is his own decision. But I just felt like it was pretty obvious that some of the most beloved moments from the original film was seeing this character on screen and seeing him do his zany, crazy theatrics and meddling. I'm not asking for 2 hours of just Beetlejuice. You know, I want more, and going into it, I thought that's what I was gonna get, but it seemed like just from this one interview alone, not specifically this interview, but this one conversation between both Tim Burton and Michael Keaton, that they had built and directed this entire movie around the idea of having only 17 to 18 minutes of Beetlejuice, which, it doesn't really seem lazy, but I feel like it downplays and kind of disrespects the rest of this film. Because at that point, I mean, it's essentially just filler until Beetlejuice pops up, and I don't really think that's fair. Which brings me to my second biggest gripe about this film, is that this plot, oh my god. I mean, I know it's not good theater etiquette at all, so please forgive me for this, but around the 30 to 40 minute mark, I had turned to one of my friends who I went to go see this movie with, and I had asked him what time the movie started. Just because at that point, at around the 30 to 40 minute mark, it had felt like that this movie was trying to start up again, and it was trying to start up again, and again, and again, all with these different plot points. The only time I actually started to garner an interest is during the funeral scene for Charles Dietz, because then I've actually felt like we're settling on one plot point, the family is grief-stricken, and we are chugging this plot train along, right? Which, once again, I'm seriously wondering if they did all of these separate plot points because they needed more runtime, to evenly distribute Beetlejuice as a character, or if they just decided to throw as many ideas at the wall, and as opposed to settling on one, they just decided to say, fuck it, and doing them all. There was one point, though, where I did hold out hope, and that was during my beloved couples therapy scene, which I had explained a little earlier on, where, you know, Lydia's boyfriend / fiance says Beetlejuice because he thinks Lydia is delusional. They get brought into the couples therapy, and Beetlejuice he runs rampant. It's such a good scene. Oh my god. One thing I did not mention is that after spilling his guts, he then somehow, makes Lydia pop out a Beetlejuice baby that then fucking scampers around the room, causing a ruckus until doing a callback gag onto the fiancé of popping open his face and scaring him to the point of fainting. I was laughing my ass off. I mean, this is good stuff, you know? I mean, I'm seeing this character that I fucking grew up with, and he's back, and he's doing new stuff, but he's doing callbacks to the old stuff, and it's just like, okay, yeah, I'm jiving with it. And then there's never another point like this in the movie, except for the wedding scene. But the wedding scene's kind of for me, you know? It doesn't feel as impactful, but nonetheless. From there, all fucking 800 plot points have the pacing of a snail moving on a treadmill. Lydia is estranged from her daughter. The stepmom is a bitch again for whatever reason. Charles is dead. Aster, which is Jenna Ortega's character, by the way, literally has a fucking Corey Cunningham love interest. I don't know if you all have seen Halloween Ends, in that character, Corey Cunningham. But he literally a bad love interest that becomes the villain, or one of the villains, because they can't decide on one. Which I guess is their way of introducing, I guess, a similar ghost situation that they had with the Maitlands, but you know, this time they're evil. Woo! Actually trying to keep track of this movie's plot was a struggle. I mean, it was a serious struggle for me, just because every single plot almost acts as a B plot, you know? There is no main plot to track here. I mean, yeah, the main plot is like, hey, we're following Lydia, but I mean, like where are we following Lydia to? What is this big thing that's supposed to happen? Eventually, like at about the halfway mark, like I'd say, not even the halfway mark, like the 30-minute mark, during Charles's funeral, Lydia gets proposed to by the scumbag fiance, and then you're like, oh, now we get to look towards this wedding, which we're, as an audience, obviously going to not like. So I guess we'll look forward to that. Also, one of the plot points that I completely fucking forgot to mention, was that Beetlejuice's original wife shows up, which was referenced in the original, with the severed finger, that he shows original Lydia. Here's the it's such an odd thing that this movie does again and again, is like, none of these plots follow up, you know? The entirety of Beetlejuice's wife, the entirety of her scenes is she pops up to a character that we've barely interacted with, who looks really interesting, and she kills him, you know. She sends him to the land of lost souls, I guess, but she literally pops up out of nowhere, sucks out the soul, and then leaves. She even killed my main fucking man, Bob! You fucking bitch. Okay, so, first off, I would like to apologize for my rude words. I am just now realizing that I went through the entire rest of the script, and I was not recording. So, take two, I guess. Moving on, the movie ends by like literally every single plot point being like rushed as quickly as possible. And this is like, I don't know, like part of me thinks that the ending of this movie was kind of rushed in the sense that like you had all of these separate things going on, and it's like you're wrapping them up as quickly as possible. Um, I don't know. We even get to the end where, you know, Beetlejuice is finally trying to get what he wants. He's come to collect, and what he wants is that being marrying Lydia. But it is ruined by Aster, who, just context really quickly, she has had access to the Book of the Recently Deceased all but one time. She has had access to it one time, and somehow, through that one time, she learned that any contract signed in the afterlife is void, which is kind of, once again, very, very odd, but nonetheless. So Beetlejuice has been beat. His contract saying that Medea agrees to marry him is burned up instantly. And from here, he doesn't even put up a fight like how he did in the first. He just fucking stands there, and they say his name, and he blows up like a balloon. You know, like what the fuck, man? At least like throw a steel plate on the mouth, or teleport them into the model, or you know, better yet. So a little bit of a callback to earlier on in the scene. The scene was full of influencers, and they literally get sucked in to their phones. Instead, have one of them teleported inside the fucking cell phone and make them have to somehow escape by breaking through, you know? I don't know. I'm not a writer, I'm not a director, I haven't made any films yet. But, you know, I feel like there were so many other ways, so many other good ways you could go about it as opposed to Beetlejuice being just immediately thrown out, you know? I mean, he's fucking powerful. He's a fucking demonic presence, you know? I don't know. I feel like I said earlier that Beetlejuice 2 is just basically a worse written rehash of the original. Not necessarily in terms of plot with the Maitlands, but more so in terms of the gags and creativity. I can understand in this age not wanting to go out and do something new, and exploratory. You know, hell, a lot of the criticism that I do see behind a lot of these old franchises getting movies of their own is that people go in expecting the same old rehashed story from their childhood, and they don't get it. And you know what? Maybe I'm a little hypocritical there because I was definitely one of those people. I went in thinking that I was gonna get a lot more Beetlejuice, but nonetheless, this is the opposite. You know, you're doing the same jokes, you're doing the same gags and stunts. Hell, I mean, they even did a callback to the possession scene from the original where Lydia gets possessed and sings "Jump in the Line," and the entire family gets possessed and sings the Banana Boat song. But instead, it's Beetle behind the wheel doing the possession, which is really interesting. I do not know the song that they sing. I'm not very familiar with it, but maybe I'll refamiliarize myself. The only thing really lacking here in terms of like this just completely being a rehashed version of the original is helping a couple through the afterlife, like the Maitlands, you know, and that's only because they had 7 other separate plot lines going all at once. And I mean, honestly, I mean, they kind of, I guess, tried to do it, or at least they attempted it with Lydia and the fiance dude. But maybe instead of trying to journey through the afterlife, they're instead trying to journey through their own relationship. I don't know. At this point, I'll connect any dots to try and make this plot make sense. Another thing that I'd really like to kind of point note on is, like, I don't know. I feel like there were so many different questions that you could have answered here, and they chose... Maybe it was good that they chose to keep it incredibly ambiguous, you know, maybe they felt as though, like, having those questions answered would water down the story. And I guess to a certain extent I could kind of understand, but, like, I want to know, like, why does Beetlejuice want in so badly? You know, why does he want to be alive again? Why does Lydia not take him up on the whole offer of getting married? You know what I mean? I know it's not necessarily like, I guess it is predatory, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like Beetlejuice would bend over backwards trying to make Lydia happy. And, you know, maybe this is where the fan in my eyes, like, okay, so something that I really, really wanted to see them try and do in this movie was I kind of wanted them to call back to the Beetlejuice animated series where Beetlejuice and Lydia actually become friends. And they I believe, journey through the afterlife together and what have you. And something about that, like, was, I don't know, just a really, really cool concept, you know, like, kind of seeing these two come to terms and, I don't know, accept one another, you know? I don't know, maybe that's hoping for too much, and you would definitely have to do a hell of a lot of writing to try and make that work, but that's just me and my opinions, so. Beetlejuice is a wonderful film. I am, of course, talking about the 1980s version. I would sincerely ask that you all go watch it, but maybe have some hesitation going into the sequel. Don't expect your childhood, and if I can give you all one piece of advice, try to enjoy the moments that you are able to. I look back fondly on the couples therapy scene, and I think maybe, just maybe, that you all will find a scene like that as well. A part of this movie that you all can look back on and find really, really cool or maybe really interesting. But at the same time, there will absolutely be those other moments that you'll look back on as well. Those other moments that maybe you won't like so much and wonder, what the hell were they thinking? But hey, maybe I'm completely wrong and unjustified. In my opinion, perhaps Beetlejuice is the best cinematic masterpiece anyone will ever make, and I should be burned at the stake for speaking out against it. If you all think so and agree, please let me know down in the comments below. I would love to hear all about it. Also, please know that I have a public Discord server where we like to play games and call quite frequently. If you are interested, there will be a link provided down in the description below. As always, be like Beetlejuice this time around, and really chase after the ones you love, even if it means from beyond the grave. Don't deny yourself your happiness, folks, and have a terrific day.